Snow had started before dawn, a fine white dust drifting down over Denver and the foothills. By 6 in the morning, the parking lot of Mercy Peak Medical Center looked like a frozen lake under the fluorescent lamps. Dr. Ava Mercer watched it from the locker room window, one palm pressed flat to the glass. Her breath fogged a faint circle. On the other side of the glass, her reflection stared back, mouth set, eyes too awake for the hour. She lowered her hand and looked at it instead. Thin fingers, short, clean nails. On the top of her right hand, just behind the knuckles, a pale scar cut across the veins. It was small, the size of a stitch. It did not belong to a quiet suburban trauma center. Under the locker room lights, the scar caught a thin yellow line of brightness. Her pager vibrated against the metal bench. Not the hospital pager. That one sat silent and dark on the shelf. This vibration came from a different device, the older black rectangle tucked deep in the side pocket of her bag. She froze. The vibration lasted 3 beats, then stopped. The screen stayed dark. No text, no alert. Phantom signal, muscle memory, or something else. Ava closed her hand over the scar until her knuckles went white. She held it there, counted to 5, then let go. The tremor in her fingers faded. She reached for the hospital scrub top hanging inside the locker and pulled it on the familiar teal cloth, dull under the overhead lights. When she stepped into the main corridor, Mercy Peak was still in that strange, half-asleep state between night shift and day shift. The soundscape was soft and layered. A cleaning cart rolling over tile, a distant ventilator sighing, the faint beep of a monitor somewhere down the hall, coffee machines humming. The emergency department sat at the far end glass doors, looking out on the snow and the mountains beyond. As Ava walked toward it, a pair of nurses at the charting station glanced up, then away. That hurt, one of them murmured, not quite under her breath. The Boston one, the other replied. Second choice. Ava kept walking. She had learned a long time ago that the first story people told about you was usually the loudest and the least accurate. In the main ER pod, Dr. Jonah Reyes stood alone at the central island flipping through a stack of printouts. He was in his 50s, hair more salt than pepper stethoscope draped over his neck, the way other people wore scarves. Coffee in one hand, pen in the other. He did not look up when Ava approached. "Morning, Dr. Reyes," she said. He answered without lifting his eyes from the papers. "You are on trauma coverage today, Dr. Mercer." It was not a question. "Yes." The night was quiet. Auto versus pole, bar fight, one stroke. Nothing dramatic. He finally looked up, then studying her in a slow, deliberate way. His gaze went from her ID badge to her face to her hands. The mountain road is a different story when it snows, though. Ava nodded. She knew about mountain roads and bad weather. She also knew that saying that out loud would invite questions. Nurse Evelyn Brooks appeared at her elbow with perfect timing, a paper cup in each hand. Late 40s, dark hair pulled back in a messy knot. Eyes that had seen everything and stopped being surprised by most of it. "You look like you need this," Evelyn said, pressing one cup into Ava's palm. "I remember my second day here. Thought I was going to throw up every time the radio crackled." "Thanks," Ava said. The coffee was cheap and too hot, but it anchored her hand, gave it something to feel. So far it seems quiet. Evelyn snorted softly. "Please do not say that word out loud in this department." The overhead speaker clicked. A crackle, the static throat clearing of the hospital. "Mercy Peak ED, this is dispatch." A voice came through, clipped and urgent. "We have a multi-vehicle collision on eastbound I-70 near mile marker 218. Repeat multi-vehicle collision, at least 10, critical multiple trapped. ETA first ambulance, 7 minutes. The word quiet vanished from the room like someone had vacuumed it out. Monitors came on. Wheels squeaked as gurneys moved. The low murmur of conversation turned sharp and fast. Reyes straightened coffee forgotten on the counter. "Mass casualty protocol, we've got," he said. "Activate all trauma bays. Call in whoever is on backup. Tell Orr we will be sending them work." Evelyn was already moving, pressing buttons on the wall console. Red lights lit up above the trauma rooms. Another nurse pulled the crash carts out from their alcoves. Ava felt her heart rate pick up a steady drum under her ribs. Her body recognized this rhythm. The corridor seemed to narrow, edges sharpening, sounds separated cleanly. The click of IV poles, the slap of boot soles, the first hint of sirens in the distance thin through the glass. Reyes started assigning teams. "Trauma 1 and 2 are mine. 3 and 4, Dr. Patel. Mercer, you take overflow and minor trauma until we know how many we are dealing with." Ava opened her mouth, then closed it. Her fingers flexed around the coffee cup. The paper creased slightly. 10 critical, dispatch had said. Not 10 walking wounded, not 10 we will see, 10 critical. She set the cup down on the counter carefully so it would not tip. "With respect, Dr. Rhea," she said, and her voice came out steadier than she felt. If it is 10 critical, there will not be much overflow. His eyes flicked toward her. Something in her tone maybe, or the way she stood, made him pause. Where have you worked trauma before, Dr. Mercer? He asked. Boston General, she answered. It was the truth, but not the whole of it. Boston does not have mountain pileups, he said. No, she replied, but blood looks the same. For a heartbeat, they simply looked at each other. The sirens grew louder, echoing off the parking structure, a chorus of rising pitch. Evelyn slid a tray of supplies into Ava's hands. Gloves, gowns, masks. Put your name on your cap so people know who to yell at. The touch of plastic and paper in her grip steadied her. She slipped on a cap, tied the strings behind her head by feel. The latex of the gloves snapped over her wrists. Her fingers stopped trembling the moment they were covered. The trauma bay doors at the far end opened with a hiss as housekeeping swabbed the floors one last time. The lights inside were harsh and clean. Stainless steel surfaces, empty beds waiting. Ava stepped into Trauma 2 and took a quick inventory. Suction working. Oxygen ready. Instrument trays laid out with scalpel clamps, chest tubes. Her gaze caught on the chest tube tray, and for a half-second the room flickered. She saw not white tile and steel, but green canvas walls. Sweat instead of antiseptic. Dust in the air. The roar of distant rotors. Her hands in the cavity of a chest that should have been still. The flicker passed. The fluorescent light steadied. Dr. Mercer, Evelyn's voice came from the doorway. Reyes wants you at the ambulance bay. Ava nodded. She crossed the room and joined the small gathering in the corridor. Residents, nurses, techs. Some looked eager, some pale. Someone was praying under their breath. Someone else laughed too loudly at a joke that was not funny. Through the glass doors at the entrance, red and blue lights flashed in the snow-white parking lot. The first ambulance slewed into position, tires crunching against slush. Its siren wound down, leaving a ringing silence in its place. The rear doors flew open. Cold air and the smell of exhaust rushed in. Paramedics jumped down, already talking. Multiple trauma male, mid-30s, unresponsive, GCS-3 penetrating chest. We have him on a portable vent, pressure is crashing. Reyes moved forward. Ava moved with him without being told. Her hand brushed against his for a second on the gurney rail. His skin was warm. Hers was cool. The patient came into view, then pale against the stretcher clothes cut away and soaked in red. A length of twisted metal protruded from his chest, glinting under the ER lights. Someone swore softly. Someone else whispered, Jesus. Ava did not say anything. She just stepped to the head of the gurney, fingers already reaching for the side of the vent, eyes tracking the numbers on the portable monitor as they wheeled the man into the roar of the trauma bay lights. They rolled the first patient straight into Trauma 2. The twisted metal in his chest rattled with every bump in the floor. Blood painted a wet trail across the tiles. On 3, the paramedic said, 1, 2, 3. They slipped him to the hospital bed. The portable monitor showed a heart rate trying to climb and failing the line jagged and shallow. His skin had that gray underwater color that meant the body was deciding to stop. Name, Ava asked. No idea, Cuz? The paramedic answered. His voice was already hoarse. Pulled from the driver's seat of a pickup dashboard folded into him. We could not extricate the metal. Needle thoracostomy in the field, 2 units of blood en route. Pressure is still tanking. Reyes was at the foot of the bed, barking orders. Epi ready. Another large bore Ivor. Type and cross. Call the OR. We do not have time to wait for an OR, Ava said. She stepped to the side, leaning in close to see the entry point. The shard of guardrail had gone in just left of the sternum and disappeared somewhere behind the ribs. Every breath made it grind. The respiratory therapist hesitated. You want us to move him? If we move that piece, he bleeds out on the floor, Ava said. If we do not move it, he dies in 15 seconds. Stop the ventilator. The therapist looked at Reyes. Reyes opened his mouth to say something, then closed it again. His jaw worked once, twice. Do it, he said. The ventilator went silent. The room seemed to hold its breath with it. Ava could hear the clock ticking above the door, impossibly loud. She picked up the scalpel from the tray. The weight of it settled into her hand like something remembered. Prep for thoracotomy, she said. Suction ready? Evelyn, you are on the heart. When I say compress, you compress. This is not a field hospital, a resident whispered. His eyes were huge above his mask. No, Ava said, we have better light. She made the incision left of the breastbone, cutting through skin and fat in one clean line. The smell of cauterized tissue and blood rose at once hot and metallic. She pushed deeper through muscle, spreading the ribs with the retractor. The sound of bone creaking opened something in her memory, a flash of hot sand and rotor wash that she shut out with force. Suction whined. Blood vanished from the field. In the exposed chest cavity, the failing heart fluttered like a trapped bird. There, she said. Clamp. Her gloved fingers moved with a precision that did not belong to this quiet Colorado hospital. She traced the path of the metal with touch rather than sight, feeling where it had pushed aside tissue where it had torn. Her hand disappeared deeper. Evelyn's hands hovered just above ready. On my count, Ava said, you pull the rail on your end. I will clamp behind it. 1, 2, 3. The paramedic at the foot of the bed pulled. The shard slid free with a wet sucking sound. Blood surged into the cavity. For a heartbeat, the heart stopped. Compress, Ava said. Evelyn's hands moved steady and relentless. The monitor gave a flat line, then a flicker, then another. Come on, Ava murmured. You got in a truck this morning. You can get through this. The line caught. Peaks formed shallow, then higher. Pressure numbers inched up like a reluctant elevator in an old building. Sinus rhythm, the anesthesiologist said softly. That is not possible. Ava did not answer. Her focus narrowed to the bleeding she still had to stop. She packed sponges clamped sutured. Her world shrank to red and movement and the feel of tissue between her fingertips. When they finally covered the wound and taped the dressing down, the clock above the door showed 11 minutes since the patient had rolled in. His heart rate was stable, blood pressure low but holding. ICU bed now, Rhea said, voice rough, and I want him monitored like a bomb. The paramedics backed out, eyes lingering on Ava for a second longer than usual. One of them, a woman with a braid down her back, gave her a short nod that was not quite gratitude and not quite awe. There was no time to take it in. Another paramedic leaned into the door. Second ambulance female 20s ejected possible pelvic fracture abdominal distension pressure, 60/30 and dropping. Trauma 1, Rhea said. Move. Ava stripped off her gloves, grabbed a new pair on the way, and followed the sound of the stretcher wheels. The second patient came in screaming. That was good. Screaming meant air moving. Screaming meant something to hold on to. Her jeans were shredded hips already swelling under the straps. A dark bloom spread across her lower abdomen. Name is Harper, the medic said over the noise. 22, belted passenger, lost consciousness twice in transport, abdomen firm. We think she's bleeding into the pelvis. Pressure, Ava asked, and yes. 60/30 climbing when she yells at us, he said. We will take the yelling. Ava put a hand on the woman's shoulder firm. Harper, my name is Dr. Mercer. You are at Mercy Peak. We are going to find where you are bleeding, and we are going to stop it. Feels like my insides are on fire, Harper gasped. Good, Ava said. Means they are still there. She ordered a fast ultrasound, but she knew the answer before the gel hit the probe. The screen bloomed black with fluid around the organs. Or, a nurse asked, will become just at. She will not survive the elevator ride if we do not raise her pressure first, Ava said. Start massive transfusion protocol. 2 units O negative now. Calcium TXA. Keep talking to her. If she stops talking, tell me. As blood began to drip into the line, Ava felt the now familiar shift in the air, the strange doubling of time she only ever felt in chaos. 7 minutes could stretch wide enough to fit a lifetime of decisions. She worked hands moving fast, but never frantic. She pressed into the lower abdomen, watching Harper's face as much as the monitor. Do not sugarcoat it, Harper said through gritted teeth. Is it bad? Yes, Ava said. It is bad. We can work with bad. That earned her a weak, startled laugh that turned into a cough. They stabilized Harper enough to move. As the OR team took over, Ava caught a glimpse of herself in the reflective surface of a cabinet. The teal cap, the mask, the smear of someone else's blood on her cheekbone. Her eyes did not look like a second-day surgeon's eyes. The third patient was the boy. 15 freckles dusted across his nose under the oxygen mask hair matted with blood, where his head had hit something hard. The trauma base smelled like copper and asphalt. Found him half under the guardrail, the paramedic said. Seatbelt on airbag deployed, but the car rolled. Hypotensive distended abdomen, decreased breath sounds on the left pupils sluggish. Every textbook Ava had ever read said there was a limit to what you could fix at once. Brain, chest, abdomen. Choose your battle. She looked at the monitor, at the scan images coming up on the screen, at the boy's chest rising unevenly. Name, she asked. Logan, the medic said. His mom is on her way. Not fast enough, Ava said quietly. She spoke louder. We are not choosing organs today. 2 residents, 1 on chest, 1 on abdomen. I will manage sequence, chest tube first. When saturation improves, we open the belly. Neuro, you are on standby at the door. The second he is stable enough to move, you own him. That is not protocol, one of the residents said. His face was already shiny with sweat. Protocol is written for days when you have time, Ava said. We do not. Her voice had changed. Even she could hear it. It had the cadence of another place, another rank. She stepped in close, guiding gloved hands, turning textbook steps into something harder and more fluid. For 40 minutes, the room became a choreography of movement and breath. Residents who had never been in combat medicine suddenly found themselves working like a field team, their hands falling into rhythm with hers. When Logan's blood pressure finally held above 90 and his chest rose evenly under the dressing, Ava felt a small hard knot loosen between her shoulders. She did not show it. She just stepped back and let the neuro team wheel him away. Outside the trauma bay, the hallway was a blur. Nurses ran, phones rang, the smell of saline and antiseptic clung to the air. Snow tracked in on the soles of shoes. There were more. A burned woman coughing up black soot skin blistered along her arms. An older man whose abdomen hid a silent ticking aneurysm. A contractor with a badge that still hung from his belt, stained but legible, the logo of a company Ava recognized from another lifetime. Each new stretcher brought a different shape of damage, a new equation to solve under a clock that never reset. Time folded in on itself. Minutes became beats. Beats became cuts and clamps and whispered orders. Reyes drifted in and out of rooms, taking over where she was not coordinating, where he could not physically stand. Once, somewhere around the 6th patient, she caught him watching her from the glass doorway. Not just glancing, but studying. His gaze went again to her hands. The scar on her right hand was hidden under the glove, but his eyes lingered there anyway. He spoke to Evelyn in a low voice as they stepped aside for a transport team. "She is new to Denver," he said, "but her hands are not new to this." Evelyn shrugged one shoulder. "Some people are built for storms." "Storms do not give you technique," he said. They did not know Ava heard them. She did. The words slid into the space inside her that had been empty of names for a long time. The 7th patient was the pregnant woman. 30 weeks, belly tight and high, face pale under the fluorescent lights. The steering wheel had left a bruised ring across her abdomen. Her lips were blue. Her name was Lily. Her husband was still at the scene, from what the paramedics said, trapped in another vehicle. 2 heartbeats on the monitor, one fast and frantic, one slower and weaker. "Standard is prioritized," the mother, Reyes said quietly at her shoulder. Ava nodded, once eyes on the ultrasound screen. The baby's heart tracing stuttered. "Standard does not look at that strip," she said. "We are taking them both." "That is not a guarantee," he said. "Nothing in here is," she said. They worked. The OR smelled like iron and fear. At one point, the baby's heart rate dipped and stayed there, a flat plateau of bad news. For a fraction of a second, Ava heard something far away. Not the monitor, but a man yelling in another language, a siren that was not an ambulance. She focused harder. Hands moved, clamps closed. A new cry filled the room, small and ragged, but loud enough to cut through 3 layers of surgical drape and every other sound. "Apgar 7, someone called, breathing on his own." Lily's pressure held. Her heart kept beating. Ava did not smile. She checked sutures, confirmed count, stepped back only when she knew there was nothing more useful she could do in that room. By the time the last of the 10 patients was handed over to ICU or the OR, the clock over the nurse's station read 3 hours and 22 minutes since the first siren. Her scrubs were stiff with dried blood. Her cap itched. Her throat felt scraped raw from talking over alarms. The world outside the ER had changed color. The snow was brighter, reflecting a late morning sun that had finally fought through the clouds. Through the glass doors, Ava could see the parking lot full of cars that were not ambulances, now ordinary people arriving for ordinary reasons. Inside, the staff moved like they were walking on a floor that might still give way. There was a stunned quality to the quiet, as if everyone had been holding their breath for hours and had not yet remembered how to let it go. Ava peeled off her gloves at the sink, one finger at a time. Underneath, her skin was pale and wrinkled. The faint tremor in her right hand was back, a small vibration between thumb and forefinger. She turned off the faucet and flexed her fingers until they steadied. 10 for 10, Evelyn said softly beside her. "Not bad for a second day." Ava gave a small huff of air that might have been a laugh if she had any energy left. In the reflection of the steel cabinet, she saw a movement behind her. The automatic doors at the entrance had opened again. Not an ambulance this time. 3 figures in dark suits stepped into the emergency department, snow melting on their shoulders, credentials already in their hands. Their eyes swept the room once and fixed on the name on Ava's badge. "Dr. Mercer," the one in front said. His voice carried easily across the space. "We need a moment of your time regarding your credentials and your prior work history." The man in front had a government haircut and the kind of posture that came from years of carrying a gun on one hip. His suit looked expensive. His shoes did not belong in a trauma bay. Behind him, 2 others fanned out, scanning exits, counting heads. Conversations in the ER thinned. A nurse silenced a monitor that was not urgent, just to cut the noise. Reyes stepped in before Ava could answer. His tone stayed polite, but there was steel under it. "This is not a good time," he said. "We just handled a mass casualty. If you have questions about hospital staff, you can schedule a meeting with administration." The man nodded as if someone had said something neutral about the weather. "Appreciate that, doctor." He flipped open a leather wallet, flashed a badge and ID. "Special Agent Marcus Doyle, Federal Bureau of Investigation. This will not take long." The letters on the badge were clear enough. The way he said them did not feel like television. Ava dried her hands on a paper towel. The skin of her palms was still damp, faintly smelling of soap and latex. "You picked a busy day," she said. Doyle smiled, but it did not soften his eyes. "Busy days tend to be when interesting things happen," he replied. "Is there somewhere we can talk that is not full of open ears and HIPAA violations?" Reyes hesitated. Ava watched him weigh it. He had just seen her cut open a man in the trauma bay like she was tying a shoe. Now the federal government wanted to speak to her in private. "There is an unused consult room by radiology," he said finally. 15 minutes, that is all I can spare her." Doyle inclined his head. 15 minutes will do." He gestured toward the corridor. Ava moved the muscles in her legs a fraction slower than her brain. Fatigue had settled into her bones, but adrenaline was still humming on top of it, a second layer of energy that did not match the exhaustion underneath. The consult room was small 2 chairs and a table blinds half closed over the narrow window. The air smelled like coffee that had gone cold and paper that had been handled too many times. Doyle closed the door behind them without letting it click shut all the way. "Dr. Mercer," he said, taking the other chair. He did not touch the table, as if leaving fingerprints on hospital furniture was a risk he had decided against. "You had quite a morning." "I was working," Ava said. "That is one word for it," he answered. He pulled a folder from his jacket thicker than something for a single question. "You were involved in 10 critical interventions, several of which were successful against fairly long odds." The word successful made her think of the ones who were still balanced on the edge. "I did my job," she said. "I'm sure you did." He opened the folder and let a sheet slide forward. The letterhead at the top read Boston General Hospital. Ava recognized the template. "Residency Surgical Fellowship Trauma Certification. You have a clean paper trail, Dr. Mercer. Very clean. So clean that it shines." She watched his face instead of the page. His eyes were the color of river rock. "You have a problem with my training?" she asked. "I have an interest in excellence," he said, "and I have a specialty in patterns that do not look quite right. You know what stands out to me here?" He tapped the page with one finger. "The gap," he said. 6 years between undergraduate and the start of med school. 4 years between fellowship completion and your first attending position. That is a full decade of your life not attached to any hospital in any obvious way. Ava could hear the hum of the fluorescent lights. Her own breathing sounded louder than his. "I worked in research," she said. The line was ready memorized. "Abroad," he added. "Very convenient for people who do not want details checked. No published papers under your name, no grants, no conferences. Just a quiet 10 years somewhere that is not on the map." He did not raise his voice. The room felt smaller anyway. "Why does the FBI care where I did my research?" Ava asked. Doyle smiled again, that same smooth expression that did not reach his eyes. "Today there was a multi-vehicle accident on Interstate 70, said. 10 critical patients arrived at Mercy Peak. All 10 are still alive largely because you were here and very good at what you do." He slid another page from the folder. It was not about her this time. It was a list of names. "You know what the odds are of that kind of survival rate in a rural trauma center after a pileup like that?" he asked. She said nothing. "Low," he answered himself. "Very low, unless the right person walks into the right hospital at the right time." He let the silence stretch. Ava did not fill it. Someone moved outside the door, the faint swish of fabric. Voices passed in the hallway, then faded. Doyle closed the folder. "We are running checks on all the victims," he said. "Standard procedure when there is suspicion of mechanical fault, outside interference, that sort of thing." "Is there suspicion of that?" Ava asked. He tilted his head slightly. "There is suspicion of a lot of things," he said. "I will have more to share once we confirm certain details. In the meantime, I'm going to ask you something simple. Think carefully before you answer." He leaned forward, elbows resting loosely on his knees. "Did you receive any contact before today? Any message, any warning that there would be a large-scale incident?" he asked. "Anything that could be interpreted as foreknowledge of a mass casualty event?" She thought of the black pager in her bag, the phantom vibration that had not shown a message. The memory of it sat in her chest like ice. "No," she said. Doyle watched her for a beat longer than was comfortable, as if weighing the shape of the word rather than the content. All right, he says it's Els, he said it at last. For now, that is all I need from you. Stay available. Do not leave the hospital without telling someone where you are going. If anything about today jogs a memory, you know how to find me. He slid a card across the table. Standard government cart doc printed names, a phone number. Ava did not pick it up. As he reached for the door, it opened from the other side. A woman stood there, shorter than Doyle, dark hair cut sharp at the jaw. She held her own badge between two fingers. Agent Kincaid, she introduced herself to Ava before Doyle could speak. Riley, I'm just here to observe for now. Her tone was easy, but her eyes were not. Doyle, she added, turning to him, we need to talk to Highway Patrol. They are ready for you upstairs. He gave a short nod, then looked back at Ava. We will circle back, Dr. Mercer, he said. When they were gone, the room felt too quiet. Ava sat for a breath longer, letting the hum of the lights settle back into something she could ignore. On the table, the card lay face up, her fingerprints nowhere on it. She left it there. Back in the ER, the chaos had become a different pattern. Less shouting, more low voices. The 10 patients had been scattered like seeds through the hospital into ICU beds, operating rooms, monitored recovery bays. Evelyn met her at the nurse's station with a fresh pair of scrubs draped over one arm. You look like a crime scene, Evelyn said, eyeing the dried blood on Ava's sleeves. Administration is already on high alert. Maybe do not give them a visual stroke. Ava accepted the scrubs. Her muscles protested the idea of moving all over again. Reyes, she asked. Radiology, Evelyn said, arguing with a radiologist about priority CT scans. He is in his natural habitat. Ava smiled faintly, the expression small but real. She was halfway to the locker room when she saw Reyes in an alcove phone pressed to his ear back to the wall. His shoulders were tense. He spoke in the clipped tone of someone asking questions he did not want to ask. Yes, I understand confidentiality, he said. I'm not asking for gossip. I'm asking if anyone remembers her in a room. Ava slowed. She should have kept walking. She did not. Mercer, he said into the phone. Ava Mercer. Yes, I have her transcripts. I see the grades. I'm asking if she ever stood out. There was a pause. He stared at a point on the opposite wall. Nobody, he repeated, his mouth thinned. No, I do not think that is possible. He hung up without saying goodbye, then turned. He stopped when he saw her, his expression tightening for a fraction of a second. Listening at doors is not a good habit in a hospital, he said. I was walking, Ava said. You were the door. His mouth almost twitched. I spoke to an old colleague at Boston General, he said. He confirms your record is spotless. The pause was deliberate. But he could not recall a single story about you, Reyes said. No difficult case, no teaching moment, no disaster. You were there for years and left no footprint. He stepped closer, not threatening, but closer than a supervisor usually stood. In my experience, doctors who perform like you did this morning leave stories behind them, he said quietly. People remember the ones who pull off miracles, or who try and fail. They do not forget hands like that. He looked at her right hand as he spoke. She wanted to put it in her pocket and could not quite bring herself to move. I kept my head down, Ava said. You buried it, he replied. His eyes searched hers. I do not know what you were before you walked into my department, Dr. Mercer, but I know you did not learn to cut that fast in any residency I have seen. Evelyn's voice floated over from the desk, a small reprieve. Dr. Reyes, she called. ICU is asking if you are sending any more disaster their way or if they can stop humming the Jaws theme. He exhaled a short breath that could have been a laugh if it had more air. We are not done with this conversation, he said to Ava, then turned toward the desk. Ava moved in the opposite direction, slipping into the locker room. She changed into clean scrubs, splashed cold water on her face, watched pale rivulets run down her neck. The mirror reflected someone she recognized and someone she did not. When she opened her locker, the bag on the top shelf shifted. The old black pager inside slid forward enough that she could see it. The screen was still dark. The casing was scuffed from sand that had never touched Colorado. She closed the locker on it and walked back out. By the time she returned to the main ER area, Agent Riley Kincaid was at the central station scrolling through something on a tablet. She looked up as Ava approached. Busy morning, Riley said. You hold up all right, doctor. I am still standing, Ava said. That is more than some of my guys can say after watching that chest procedure, Riley replied. Her eyes were sharp, assessing. You ever do battlefield medicine, Dr. Mercer? The question hit with the weight of a thrown stone. No, Ava said. Riley studied her for a moment, then held up the tablet. Here is what we have so far, she said. Highway Patrol is reconstructing the accident. Initial report says a semi-jackknifed car is piled up behind it. On paper, it looks messy but ordinary. On paper, Ava repeated. Right, Riley said. She tapped the screen. We ran quick background checks on the first 5 you touched. The driver with the rail through his chest is an engineer for a defense contractor. The boy you patched for neuro carries a dependent ID for a national security agency analyst. The pregnant woman is married to a colonel currently attached to Defense Intelligence. She slid her gaze sideways to see the effect of the words. You want me to keep going? She asked. Ava did not answer. Did not think so, Riley said softly. Point is, ordinary pileups do not usually scoop up that kind of cluster by chance. Evelyn appeared beside them with a chart expression neutral. Some days the world remembers how small it is, she said. Everybody ends up in the same ditch. Riley's eyes flicked to her badge, then back to Ava. We are going to need to talk to each of them once they are awake and less likely to bleed out if we ask a hard question, Riley said. Until then, I am trying to understand how you fit into this picture. I do not, Ava said. Riley smiled nothing like Doyle's smile. This one had edges. See, that is the part that bothers me, she said. The one person who should not belong in this pattern is the one person who keeps all of them breathing. She tucked the tablet under her arm. I'm not saying you caused the accident, Dr. Mercer, she added. But when the universe lines up interesting company on a winter road, it is my job to ask why. Around them, the ER hummed on. Phones rang, pages sounded, a child cried somewhere down the pediatric wing. Snow continued to fall outside, soft and steady, erasing tracks in the parking lot even as new ones formed. The snow outside thickened as the morning wore on. From the ER, the world beyond the glass doors looked like static white noise layered over the parking lot and the mountains. Inside, the 10 charts from the highway crash lay spread across the central desk. Riley had commandeered a corner of the station, one hand on a tablet, the other on a paper cup of coffee that had long gone cold. Ava stood beside her. Evelyn hovered within arm's reach, flipping through lab results and film reports. Number 1, Riley said, tapping the tablet. Guardrail through the chest. Name is Daniel Hayes. Senior systems engineer at Stratomex Defense. They make guidance systems for things that fly and explode. Evelyn let out a small breath through her nose. Could be coincidence. Riley glanced at her. Sure. She tapped again. Number 3, Logan Carter, 15, dependent of Elaine Carter, analyst at a facility in Fort Meade that nobody calls by its real name. She did not have to say NSA. She moved down the list. Lily Grant. Husband is Colonel Michael Grant, currently on assignment with Defense Intelligence. Our burned lady Maya Ortiz, sister of a journalist who has been publishing a series on off-the-book operations in Eastern Europe. The contractor with the shredded leg works for a logistics firm that holds a lot of contracts with agencies that do not like their names in print. She slid the tablet in Ava's direction. That is 5 of your 10, Riley said. Tie them all together and they would make a very uncomfortable briefing slide. Ava scanned the names, the affiliations, the small black letters that did not mention blood fear, screaming. Her fingers rested on the edge of the desk, knuckles pale. Highway patrol is still saying weather and a jackknifed semi, Riley continued. I'm sure there was a truck. I'm just not convinced it was the whole story. There are whole years in my life that are not on any slide, Ava said. Riley studied her face. Yeah, she said quietly. I imagine there are. The lights flickered. It was small at first, a blink in the corner of the eye. The fluorescence buzzed, dimmed, brightened. A computer at the registration desk restarted with a chirp. Power surge, someone said. The lights went out. For one breath, the ER existed in total dark. There were no monitors, no glowing exit signs, no reflected snow, only voices and the sudden pitch of silence around them. Then the generator kicked in with a low mechanical groan. Emergency lights snapped on, bathing the corridors in red. Critical outlets around the department glowed green. The monitors restarted their screens a beat behind the alarm tones. Everyone calm, Reyes called out from across the room. We rehearsed this. Life support stays on. Non-essential equipment stays off until facilities clears it. The room shifted into a different rhythm. Nurses checked plugs, traced cords, confirmed that ventilators were still cycling. Ava felt a sharp, cold prickle at the base of her neck. The emergency lights painted everyone in the same rust-colored shade. The usual comfort of the fluorescence was gone. That is not just weather, Riley said under her breath. Backup generators fail, Evelyn said. We are in a snowstorm. Riley nodded slowly, but her jaw was tight. Maybe, she said. Ava glanced toward the glass doors at the entrance. From here she could see only a slice of the parking lot, but it was enough. Through the haze of falling snow, dark shapes were moving. Headlights cut through the white. 3 SUVs pulled into view and lined up with a precision that did not look like visitors coming for visiting hours. Their headlights went dark. No one got out right away. Ava's mouth went dry. Evelyn, she said, where are our crash patients right now? Evelyn blinked once, recalibrating. 3 in ICU, she said. 2 in step down, 2 still in OR. The kid Logan just went up to neuro. Burn unit took Maya. Lily and the baby are in post-op by maternity. Why? Ava kept her eyes on the parking lot. Because, she said, if today is about more than a truck on a highway, those 10 are not patients. They are targets. And if you want to hit 10 targets in a hospital, you look for where they are grouped, not scattered. Riley followed her gaze. Her hand went to her radio without her seeming to think about it. This is Kincaid, she said into her shoulder mic. I want security to confirm every vehicle that just pulled into the south lot. Plate numbers, occupants, what they claim to be. Now. Static answered. Then a thin, distorted voice. Security here. We had a flicker when the power dropped. Cameras rebooting. We have eyes on the main entrance, not the south lot yet. Get them, Riley said. Ava turned to Evelyn. We need those 10 spread out, she said. Different floors, different wings, no names on doorboards. Use trauma labels instead. Reyes appeared at her other side as if summoned. You do not give orders about bed assignments, he said. His voice was low but not unkind. What is going on? She faced him. Somebody put 10 people connected to sensitive work in the same crash and sent them to the same hospital, she said. Now 3 SUVs just pulled in while our power flickered. I am not waiting to see who they are before I act like this is nothing. Reyes looked at her for a long second. The red emergency light made the lines on his face deeper. You are suggesting what exactly? He asked. I am suggesting we make it harder for anyone with a gun and a plan to find all 10, Ava said. Move them, split them up, change their names in the system, tell no one who does not need to know. We do not hide patients like contraband, Reyes said. Riley cut in. Doctor, I am the one whose job it is to see patterns that end with body bags, she said. And I am with her on this. Spread them out. Worst case, we wasted an hour and annoyed ICU. Reyes rubbed a hand over his face. Somewhere behind them, a kid in pediatrics laughed at something on a tablet, the sound eerie under the red lights. Fine, he said. ICU gets Daniel Hayes and the contractor. Burn unit keeps Maya. Step down takes the older man and Harper once, or is done. We move Lily and the baby to separate recovery bays. I will call neuro about Logan. He looked at Ava again. You started this game of hide and seek, he said. You help finish it. She was already moving. What followed was another kind of triage. Not blood and wounds, but risk and exposure. Ava moved room to room, checking IDs, confirming wristbands, helping guide beds through dim corridors. Monitors rolled with them, batteries beeping in protest. Nurses muttered about confusion and paperwork. Harper swore as they rolled her down a different hallway. I just got comfortable, she said through gritted teeth. New room has a better view, Ava lied. Through the window in Harper's new bay, she could see only a concrete wall and a sliver of gray sky. In ICU, Daniel Hayes lay under a blanket ventilator, sighing at his bedside. His chest rose and fell with the regular precision of a machine. The guardrail had been replaced by tubes and dressings. As they repositioned his bed, Ava caught sight of his ID badge on the bedside table, Stratomex Defense. Beside it, a lanyard with a building access card. She turned the badge face down. In the hallway outside neuro, a portable X-ray machine hummed. Logan's chart hung at the foot of his new bed, clipped on neatly. Someone had written his name in quick block letters. Ava pulled the marker from its holder and scratched it out. She wrote Trauma 3 instead. The nurse raised an eyebrow. Since when are we running a spy ring? She asked. Since today, Ava said. Riley kept up a running commentary into her radio, her voice threaded through with increasing unease. Kincaid again. South lot cameras still glitching. No one is answering from the loading dock. I want someone physically there now. Confirm no one came in the service entrance without a badge swipe. The response came slower this time. Copy to Kisham. Okavi, security said. The word sounded like it came from a long way off. Ava finished checking Lily and her baby, who slept in separate but adjacent bays, connected to separate but equally fragile webs of tubes and monitors. Lily's eyelids fluttered as Ava adjusted a line. My husband, she whispered. Did they find him? They are working on it, Ava said. It was not enough, but it was all she had. She stepped out into the hall. Her heart was beating too fast for someone who was not currently holding a scalpel. The stairwell door at the far end creaked open. 3 men stepped out. They wore civilian coats over clothes that did not quite fit the picture of visitors. The coats were dark and heavy. The way they moved under them said there was weight on their hips that was not keys or phones. The man in front was tall, broad-shouldered, his hair clipped close to his skull. His eyes swept the corridor in one smooth pass before landing on Ava. He smiled without warmth. Captain Ward, he said, the words were quite perfectly clear. You are hard to lose. The name hit her like a physical blow. For a moment, the hallway tilted. The red emergency lights pulsed against the white walls and her vision doubled. Hospital corridor, sand-blown tent, same man, different uniforms. She swallowed. Her mouth tasted like metal. You have the wrong person, she said. He walked closer at an unhurried pace, his 2 men fanning out just enough to be positioned near room doors rather than in the open. I am Colonel Travis Maddox, he said. I taught you how to open a chest in the back of a moving vehicle, Captain. I watched you keep 3 men alive with a headlamp and a bottle of saline. I know your face even if you pretend you do not know mine. Riley came up from the side corridor at a quick clip hand near her holster. Her eyes took in the coats, the postures, the way Maddox's fingers were never far from his waist. Sir, this is a restricted floor, she said. Visitors go through registration. Maddox did not look at her. That badge, he said to Ava, nodding toward her chest. Mercer is a better name on paper, quieter, less attention. Colonel, Riley said, steel sliding into her tone, look at me when I am talking. He shifted his gaze to her slowly as if indulging a child. And you are, he asked. Special Agent Riley Kincaid, FBI, she said. You are. I just told the doctor, he said. You should pay attention. Her grip tightened on her radio. Do you have identification, Colonel Maddox? She asked. He smiled. Not one you are cleared to see, he said. Before Riley could respond, another set of footsteps sounded from behind. Doyle rounded the corner, flanked by 2 men in tactical vests under their jackets. They moved with the efficient readiness of people who had done this before. Doyle, Riley said, we have a situation. So I see, he said calmly. His eyes flicked from Maddox to Ava, then back. Something like recognition passed over his face, followed by annoyance. Colonel, he said, as if the rank were something sour on his tongue. You were told to stay away from active scenes. And you were told not to break the toys you might still need, Maddox replied. The corridor felt suddenly crowded. The doors to the patient rooms were closed, but the thin walls did not offer much comfort. Monitors beeped on the other side, oblivious to the human geometry in the hall. Doyle's posture shifted a degree. We are in a hospital, he said. Weapons stay holstered. You have no jurisdiction here. Jurisdiction is a flexible concept, Maddox said. We both know that. He nodded toward the rooms. You moved them so, he said to Ava. Good instincts. Too late to matter, but still. Riley stepped between them, planting herself in the center of the corridor. Okay, Teo, she said. Everyone take a breath. Colonel, unless you have documentation saying otherwise, you are trespassing. Agent Doyle, your people are not supposed to be walking around with unregistered hardware in civilian medical facilities. Maddox's men shifted their weight. Doyle's team did the same. Hands hovered near hidden holsters, jackets gaping just enough to show the matte shapes beneath. We are not the problem here, Kincaid, Doyle said. His voice had lost some of its smoothness. We are the ones trying to contain it. Contain what exactly? Riley asked. He did not answer. Maddox did. Emerald Lantern, he said. The words hung in the air. Somewhere down the hall, a call light chimed insistent. Riley frowned. I'm going to need a translation. It is a program, Maddox said. Has been for a long time. High-value operations. Necessary work your bosses get very nervous about when civilians start asking the wrong questions. He turned his head just enough to look at Ava. She know what happens to people who shine light on things like that, he asked. Ava's throat felt tight. The name of the program scraped against old memories, briefings in windowless rooms, signatures on non-disclosure documents, maps with no labels. This conversation is over, Doyle said sharply. Colonel, you are done here. You cannot bury all of it with a badge and a frown, Maddox said. His voice stayed even. You tried once, used me as the lid, did not hold. Riley's eyes went from one man to the other. You two want to catch me up on who gave those orders? She asked. Maddox laughed once, a dry sound. Ask your friend with the nice documents in his pocket, he said. He is the one drawing a paycheck from the people who signed them. Doyle's hand moved. The shot was louder in the narrow corridor than it would have been outside. Maddox jerked, staggered back into the wall. A dark bloom spread across his shoulder, soaking into his coat. For a heartbeat, no one else moved. The smell of burnt powder rolled over the antiseptic. Jesus Christ, Riley snapped. What are you doing? Neutralizing a compromised asset who is about to say things above your pay grade, Doyle said. His gun was out now, solid and unhurried in his grip. Maddox slid down the wall, leaving a smear of red. One of his men reached for his own weapon. At the far end of the hall, one of Doyle's tactical agents swung their aim and fired. 2 shots. The man went down hard. Then everyone moved. Riley ducked to the side, pulling her own gun, shouting for everyone to stand down. Doyle's team fanned out, taking cover behind corners, doorframes, any partial barrier. Maddox's remaining man fired in short bursts, sharp punctuation in the confined space. Glass shattered somewhere. A monitor inside a room began screaming in alarm. A nurse opened a door a crack, saw the scene, slammed it shut again with a sharp cry. Ava hit the floor before her conscious mind caught up, body remembering the calculus of angles and bullets. The hallway smelled of cordite fear and the metallic tang of fresh blood. "Lily," she said out loud, not sure who she was talking to. The rooms were too close. Stray rounds could travel through sheetrock without effort. "Stop shooting, Shao," Riley shouted. "We have live patients on this floor. Stand down now." No one listened. Doyle and his men were focused, moving in practiced arcs. Their faces were not angry. They were efficient. Maddox lay half in the open, half behind the jut of a doorway. He was trying to push himself up, blood running between his fingers over his shoulder. "You are going to bleed out," Ava said. She had already started crawling toward him before she finished the sentence. "This is how you repay people who tried to kill you," he rasped. "You really do have a problem, Captain." "Shut up," she said. She reached him, hands already on his coat, pressing into the wound. The fabric came away warm and slick. Under her palms the muscle twitched. "You move him, you put yourself in the line of fire," Riley shouted. "He is in the line of fire," Ava answered. "And I'm in a hospital with a license that still means something." She tore the coat away, fingers seeking the tear in his shirt beneath. The bullet had gone through the upper chest high enough to miss the heart, low enough to hit everything else she did not want it to hit. "Do not die on my floor," she said. "I am not signing that chart." Maddox's lips pulled back something like a smile or pain. "You always did talk too much when you cut," he said. She raised her voice without taking her eyes off the wound. "Evelyn," she called. "Crash cart now." It was not loud, but it carried. Nurses knew the sound of that tone. Evelyn appeared from behind a corner, pushing a cart with one hand. Her face was pale under the red lights, but her movements were steady. She swung the cart into position, popped open drawers with efficient speed. "He is not exactly on my list of favorite people," she said. "He is still one of mine," Ava said. "Oxygen, 2 large-bore IVs. I need pressure bags and whatever blood type we have the most of." As she worked, Maddox grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. His fingers dug into her skin just above the glove line. "You think today is about me showing up with a couple of guns?" He said, words gritty. "It is not. I am not the storm. I am the wind that gets there first." "Save your breath," Ava said. "You are leaking enough already." He shook his head once. "Look at your staff," he murmured. "Somebody has been reporting every shift you work. Every room you walk into. They knew you would be here. They put those 10 in your path for a reason." His grip loosened. For a second his eyes sharpened, focusing on a point behind her. "You trust her," he said. "You should not." "Trust who?" Ava asked. Ava asked. But his head lolled, pupils rolling. The monitor they had clipped to his finger beeped a frantic staccato. "Evelyn," Ava said, "we are going to need to move him to OR as soon as this corridor stops sounding like a war movie." Almost on cue, the gunfire slowed. A shouted command echoed from the far end. More voices joined these ones closer to the panicked tone of hospital security. "Drop the weapon hands where I can see them." Riley's voice cut through. "Everyone stand down. This is Kincaid. Anyone who fires another round without my order will answer for it," she said. Her breathing was audible over her own words. A beat passed. Another. The only sounds left were alarms, the hiss of oxygen, the ragged ways bodies tried to catch up with themselves after a sprint. Evelyn taped a dressing over Maddox's wound fingers quick. "Or is already screaming for a heads up about incoming," she said. "They do not know it is the guest star. Tell them to prep for thoracic trauma and an attitude," Ava said. Evelyn almost smiled. As they loaded Maddox onto a gurney, he grabbed Ava's wrist again, weaker this time. "They will offer you a deal," he said, voice barely there. "They always do. Just remember who writes the terms." His hand slipped away. They wheeled him toward the elevators, leaving a trail of diluted blood and the sharp scent of antiseptic in their wake. In the aftermath, the corridor filled with new uniforms. Hospital security, local police with their radios and wary eyes. Additional agents in jackets with letters on the back that meant different parts of the same machine. Doyle stood with his hands raised until someone with a higher badge told him to lower them. His face was composed, his eyes flat. Riley argued with a man who looked like he had arrived straight from some federal building downtown, his overcoat still dusted with snow. Voices rose and fell, clipped phrases about jurisdiction and use of force and scenes being secured. Ava stepped out of the way back toward the nurse's station. Her hands were tacky inside her gloves. She needed to scrub them again. She also needed to sit down. Neither seemed possible. Evelyn was at the desk, phone to her ear, her other hand flipping pages on a clipboard. I know what the protocol says, she was saying quietly. I'm telling you she is ready. You saw the numbers, 10 out of 10. She paused, listening. Her eyes drifted up, scanning the corridor. They landed on Ava. Her expression did not change, but she turned slightly, angling her body so that her mouth was half hidden by a monitor. They will move fast now, she said into the phone. You do not have much time. Ava took a step closer. The adrenaline in her veins shifted, prickled. The question Maddox had planted unfolded in her chest. You trust her. You are sure? Whoever was on the other end asked. The voice was too faint to make out words, but the cadence traveled across the line. Evelyn's gaze met Ava's. For the first time all day, the older woman looked tired. I have been sure for 3 years, Evelyn said. You just saw what I already knew. She ended the call, then slowly placed the phone face down on the counter. Ava stopped on the other side of the desk. The red emergency lights flickered once and steadied. Who were you talking to? Ava asked. Someone who was waiting for proof, Evelyn said. There was no denial, no scramble for a lie. She leaned against the counter like her feet had decided enough was enough. You have been watching me, Ava said. Everyone has been watching you, Evelyn said. They just did not know why. I did. Riley approached, friction still in every line of her body. She took in the scene in a glance, Ava's face, Evelyn's posture, the phone between them. Do I need to read anyone their rights here? She asked. Evelyn looked at her, then at Ava. I was a combat medic, she said. Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria. I watched good people die on dirt floors because we did not have surgeons who knew how to bend the rules and still get away with it. When they came to me and said they wanted to make sure the next time we had one she did not run, I said yes. Who is they? Riley asked. Evelyn reached into her scrub pocket. Slowly, so no one with a gun flinched. She pulled out a plain black cell phone. No logos, no stickers, just matte plastic and subtle wear. She set it on the counter between them. They want to talk to you, Sarah, she said, using a name that had not been spoken aloud in this building. They have always wanted to talk to you. You just disappeared before they could make the offer. The phone began to vibrate. No ringtone, just a steady, insistent buzz. Riley's hand went toward it, but Evelyn shook her head. Not for you, she said. Ava stared at the phone. Her reflection looked back at her from its dark screen, warped and small. You can walk away, Riley said quietly. You do not have to answer that. Evelyn's eyes softened. You can, she said. You always can. You are very good at it. But you know what happens to those 10 upstairs if you do. The phone kept vibrating. Each buzz felt like a pulse in Ava's bones. She picked it up and hit the green button. This is Captain Ward, she said. A voice came through, smooth and measured. It held no trace of region, the vowels filed down to something generic. Captain Ward, the man said. Or do you prefer Dr. Mercer? Now, I confess I am never sure which title to use when someone is so good at both jobs. Who is this? Ava asked. My name is Cole Hale, he said. I oversee a small but significant portfolio of special activities for several agencies that will insist they have never heard of me if anyone asks. You have been a point of interest in that portfolio for quite some time. He spoke as if they were in an office, not a hospital, still smelling of gunpowder. You staged an accident, Ava said. You put 10 people on a highway and counted on me being here. We recognized an opportunity, Hale said. You were placed at Mercy Peak for a reason. The road did the rest. Riley leaned in close enough to catch both sides of the conversation. Her jaw clenched. You tried to kill them, Ava said. No, Hale replied. We allowed a situation to develop where certain individuals of value were put at risk. We also ensured that the only surgeon in 300 miles capable of pulling all of them back from the brink was standing under those fluorescent lights. He paused. And you did not disappoint, he added. 10 lives, 10 saves. Extraordinary. Ava's grip on the phone tightened. You turned a hospital into a live fire exercise, he said. You sent people with guns into an ICU. I am aware of Colonel Maddox's lack of restraint, Hale said. He has always been more blunt instrument than scalpel. Necessary at times, messy at others. We will address his performance separately. Riley mouthed the name Hale to herself, like she was filing it away for later. What do you want? Ava asked. Want is a strong word, he said. Let us say I have an offer that aligns your talents with needs that currently lack proper coverage. He continued unhurried. You spent years saving the lives of individuals whose existence could never be acknowledged, he said. Then you tried to tell the world about some of the uglier things that went along with that. The world did not thank you. It shuffled some papers, slapped a few wrists, and let the structure remain. In response, you buried yourself under another name in a quiet hospital. Ava closed her eyes for a second. The red glow showed through her lids. You are wasting your skills on random chaos, Hale said. Bar fights, car accidents, failing hearts. You could be applying them where they alter the course of operations that actually shape the security of this country by patching up people who do things you would be very careful not to describe in detail, Ava said. We do hard things to keep harder things from happening, he said. You know that. You lived it. You just became uncomfortable with the level at which those decisions were made. Riley's hand hovered near her own phone. She was recording. Ava could tell by the way her thumb rested on the screen. Here is the situation, Captain Hilda. Ed. Today you demonstrated beyond question that you are still the surgeon we invested in. You could have walked away from that pileup at any point. You chose to stay. You chose to go 10 for 10. He let the number hang. Those 10 are now assets, Max, he said. Some of them always were. Some of them will be now, whether they know it or not. I am prepared to ensure their continued survival and the survival of their families in exchange for one thing. What? Ava said. You, Hale answered. We have prepared a position for you as a civilian contractor. Full clearances reinstated. Access to facilities where your unconventional approach is not only tolerated but required. Evelyn slid an envelope from her pocket and placed it next to the phone. It was thick, unmarked, sealed. Credentials, Hale said as if he could see. Travel documents. Your first assignment, should you accept. A location in Eastern Europe currently lacking adequate medical support for ongoing operations. And if I do not accept, Ava said. Silence stretched. For the first time, Hale's voice cooled a fraction. Those 10 people upstairs are alive because of you, you want to go on? Oh, he said. They are also alive because we allowed them to be. The injuries they sustained this morning are not simple. They will require ongoing care by someone who understands exactly what was done to put them back together. If I walk away, you will kill them, Ava said. If you refuse, we will stop intervening on their behalf, Hale said. Call it negligence. Call it the natural progression of trauma. Call it whatever helps you sleep. Their charts will show complications that are on paper entirely plausible. Riley shook her head, eyes hard. You are threatening patients to recruit a surgeon, she said, knowing he could hear. That is your pitch. Agent Kincaid, Tiku, Hale said pleasantly. I suggest you enjoy the portion of this conversation you are cleared to witness. The rest will belong to classification levels you will never reach. He went back to Ava. You have 12 hours, he said. At the end of that time, one of two things will happen. You will board a plane to the location specified in that envelope, at which point we will allocate extensive resources to keeping your 10 miracles upright. He paused. Or you will not, he said, and their luck will run out starting around the time your shift ends. Ava looked at Evelyn. The older woman's face was lined eyes shining in a way that had nothing to do with the red light. You helped them, Ava said. I made sure you ended up somewhere you could still be useful, Evelyn said. That is help in my book. You stood next to me while we tried to keep them alive, Ava said. I have stood next to a lot of people trying to keep the wrong ones alive, Evelyn replied. This felt like a better use of my time. On the line, Hale cleared his throat softly. I am not your enemy, Captain, he said. I am someone offering you a way to be exactly what you are without having to pretend otherwise. Ava's hand tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. 12 hours, Hale repeated. Make the call I know you will make, or do not, and live with the math. The line clicked. The phone went still. The red lights hummed. Somewhere down the hall, a baby cried. A ventilator sighed. A monitor beeped in a steady, uncaring rhythm. On the counter, the envelope waited edges sharp under the emergency glow. For a long moment, no one spoke. The phone in Ava's hand felt heavier than it should, as if Hale's voice had seeped into the plastic. The envelope sat beside it, mute and patient. The red emergency lights hummed. Riley exhaled slowly. 12 hours, she said. That is a nice round number. Evelyn pushed away from the counter. The lines in her face seemed deeper, the tiredness not just from a bad day. You should get some air, she told Ava. You look like someone pulled you inside out. I am fine, Ava said. That is what every surgeon says right before they fall over, Evelyn replied. Go walk. The patients are not going anywhere in the next 5 minutes. Her tone was almost normal. Only the way her fingers curled against her palm gave anything away. Before Ava could answer, a new cluster of suits came through the ER entrance. These ones wore different credentials. Their badges showed nothing but embossed seals and numbers. They spoke briefly with Doyle, then with Reyes, then with Riley. One of them, a tall woman with a severe bun, walked straight to Evelyn. Ms. Brooks, she said, you will come with us. Evelyn did not argue. She untied her scrub top slowly as if she were at the end of a shift instead of in the middle of a federal handoff. You cannot just walk in and remove my nurse, Reyes said. He was tired enough that he had stopped making the anger polite. The woman held up a folder that was more red tape than cardboard. She is being transferred for questioning regarding a classified investigation, she said. You will be provided with a replacement. I do not want a replacement, he said. I want the one who knows where everything is. It is not a request, doctor, she said. Evelyn put a hand on his arm. It is all right, she said. I knew this day was coming. I just hoped we would have more coffee first. She looked at Ava. Whatever you choose, try not to forget why you went to med school, she said. Not why they hired you, why you started. Then she let the woman lead her away. Riley watched them go jaw tight. That is above my badge, she murmured. For now. She turned back to Ava. You do not have to take this, Riley said. What he is doing, what they are doing, none of it is legal. We can push this. Go public. Find allies. There are oversight committees for a reason. I testified once, Ava said. The words came out flat. I sat in a dark suit under brighter lights than these and told a room full of important people what was happening in places that did not have names. They nodded. They thanked me. They put one man in a box and left the doors open for everyone else. This is not the same, Riley said. It feels close enough, Ava answered. The envelope waited on the counter. She picked it up more to get it away from Riley's line of sight than anything. The paper was stiff under her fingers. I need to see my patients, she said. All of them. Reyes appeared at her shoulder as if he had been listening without meaning to. You think he will make good on that threat, he said. I do not know, Ava said. I am not leaving their charts to guesswork. They started on the ICU floor. Daniel Hayes lay in his bed ventilator, whispering monitors, painting his vital signs in soft green and blue. His pressure was low but stable. The chest dressing was clean. He is right on the edge, the ICU nurse said. We are keeping him there. Ava checked the readings herself, watched the waveforms, counted breaths. Daniel did not move. His eyelids fluttered once, then stilled. You hang on until I figure out how many pieces of you I'm allowed to keep, she murmured. In the next bay, the contractor with the shredded leg grimaced in his sleep. His features smoothed when she adjusted the rate on his pain pump. A logo on his discarded jacket made her throat tighten. She had seen it on crates that were never officially shipped anywhere. She charted quickly, moving down the list. Step down was noisier. Harper was awake, pale but mouthy, which Ava took as a good sign. They keep poking me, Harper complained. Every time I close my eyes, somebody wants blood or a blood pressure or a piece of my soul. That means you are interesting, Ava said. She checked the bandaging over Harper's pelvis, pressed gently, watched the grimace. Are we winning? Harper asked. For now, Ava said. In neuro, Logan lay under dimmed lights, head-wrapped lines snaking from his arms. His chest rose evenly now. The neuro team had left a note about swelling, about cautious optimism. His mom is in the family room, the nurse whispered. She has not stopped asking about the surgeon who refused to choose which part of him to save. Ava rested a hand on the foot of the bed for a second. You are not done, she said quietly. You do not get to be done. Lily and her baby were the last. 2 rooms, 2 machines, 2 fragile sets of numbers. Lily's face was calm in a drugged way. The baby's chest fluttered beneath the clear plastic of the incubator. Ava watched the little boy's ribs rise and fall the ventilator, hissing softly, the monitor's line a nervous scribble. They want to use you as a bargaining chip, she said, though no one could hear. When she finished, the charting system showed 10 open files under her login, each with fresh notes, each with orders that might or might not matter in 12 hours. By late afternoon, the emergency lights had gone off. Full power returned. The snow outside softened into a pale gray slush. Visitors came and went, carrying flowers and worry. The hospital hummed on. Underneath, tension coiled quiet and tight. When Ava finally walked out of Mercy Peak at the end of her shift, the sky over Denver was the color of old bruises. The cold air hit her like water. Her breath came out in small white clouds. She drove home without turning on the radio. Her apartment was as anonymous as the day she had moved in. White walls, rental furniture that could belong to anyone. A single plant on the windowsill that survived more from resilience than care. She set the envelope on the kitchen table and stared at it for a long time before opening it. Inside, everything was organized. A new ID card with her photograph and the name Dr. Elena Ward, Department of Defense contractor, a set of laminated clearances, a printed itinerary for a flight out of Denver at dawn, connecting through Washington to a military transport headed to a base in Eastern Europe. A brief summary of ongoing operations requiring surgical support, scrubbed of details but rich with euphemism. At the bottom, on heavier paper, a note in neat handwriting. You were designed for more than car accidents. It did not have a signature. It did not need one. Her phone buzzed. Reyes. She answered without saying hello. How are they? She asked. Stable, Kipej said. For now, which brings me to the part where I ask what you are planning. She looked at the papers spread out on the table. That depends on whether you believe threats from men who never get blood on their own hands, she said. Reyes exhaled. I spent 30 years watching systems pretend they are not run by people, he said. Threats are tools, same as scalpels. Some people love using both. That is not an answer, she said. I do not have one, he replied. I have only this. Those 10 are alive because of you. If they die because of you, that will be true too. Silence sat between them. I do not think like that, she said. You do, he said gently. You just do not say it out loud. She closed her eyes, saw Daniel's gray skin, Harper's grin, Logan's freckles under bruises, Lily's still face, the baby's flickering chest. I cannot be everywhere, she said. No one can, he said, but you have to look at how you can live with whatever you choose. He did not tell her what choice to make. They both knew that part was hers. After they hung up, she sat at the table until darkness had settled in completely, and the only light was the one over the stove. The phone buzzed again around midnight. Unknown number. She knew who it was. She answered. You are cutting it close, Hale's voice said. I would hate for time zones to confuse something so important. You do not need 12 hours to make it worse, she said. If you were going to let them slip, you could do it now. We are not monsters, he said. We do not kill for sport. We manage risk. You are holding 10 lives in your hand to make a point, she said. We are holding 10 lives in our hand to remind you that theirs intersect with many more, he said. Engineers, analysts, officers, they are not just random profiles. They are nodal points in larger structures. Lose them, lose what they support. Keep them, keep the work. And me, she said. And you, he agreed. You are not a node, you are a multiplier. You amplify everything you touch. There was a pause. She could hear the quiet in his office, the distant murmur of someone else on a phone in another room, the click of keys. You could drive back to the hospital right now, he said. You could spend the rest of the night resuscitating them as their bodies begin to remember what hit them this morning. You would win for a few hours. Then we would be back here again. Or I get on your plane, she said, and you keep them alive. Yes, he said. Consider it insurance. You have always understood that concept in the field. This is no different. It is, she said. Is it? He asked. He let the question hang, then continued. You are trying to find a third option where there are only two weapons, he said. Stay and watch them fall or come with us and keep them standing. You are wrong, she said. I rarely am, Fufa, he replied. The plane leaves in 7 hours. If you are not on it, we will assume you have chosen for them. He ended the call. The apartment felt smaller when the line went dead. The envelope on the table looked like a trap and like a lifeline. Ava stood. Her body moved on decisions her mind had not yet fully laid out. She packed a small bag in 7 minutes. Not the one the ID and clearances belonged with. A different one. Clothes that did not match any uniform medical kit that could belong to any volunteer, a passport with a name that was real and not real at the same time. She left the envelope on the table. The night outside was sharper than the afternoon had been. The snow had stopped. The streets were quiet, plowed into narrow channels of black asphalt and white piles. Her car started on the first turn of the key. She drove east out of Denver, then south, following highway signs toward warmer air and water. She did not turn on the GPS. She did not need it. She had traced routes like this in her head for years. Always hypotheticals, always contingency plans. Her phone rang once, Reyes. She let it go to voicemail. It rang again an hour later, Riley. She ignored it. On the third ring, she answered. Lily is slipping, Reyes said. The fatigue in his voice wrapped around the words. Her blood pressure is dropping. The baby is stable for now. The others are holding, but the numbers are getting fragile. I'm sorry, Ava said. Where are you? He asked. Somewhere I should have gone a long time ago, she said. He was silent for a long beat. You know what this sounds like, he said. Talk like that. I know, she said. You told me once that blood looks the same no matter where it spills, he said. Do not let men in suits convince you some of it is worth more. The line crackled. They were out far enough that towers were sparse. I cannot save them from him, she said. Not that way. You do not know that, he said. I do, she said softly. He can find me in any hospital. He can find me on any flight manifest. There are fewer lists where I am headed. You are making his job easier, Reyes said. If he wants you, he will follow the same routes. Maybe, she said. Or maybe he will decide his leverage just disappeared and find someone else to pull apart. You think running solves this, he said. No, she said. I think running keeps me from becoming what he wants. Those are not the same thing. He did not argue after that. When he spoke again, his voice was closer to the way it sounded when they were both bent over a surgical field. "If I cannot talk you out of this," he said, "at least stay alive long enough to be a problem for them." "I will try," she'd say. "Try," she said. When they hung up, the highway stretched out ahead, a long ribbon of darkness framed by occasional truck stops and sodium vapor lights. The eastern horizon was beginning to pale. By the time the first glint of water appeared, the sky had turned a washed-out pink. The port was smaller than Baltimore, busier than a fishing dock. Containers stacked in bright metal rows, cranes moving like patient insects. She parked in a lot that smelled like diesel and salt. Men in reflective vests shouted to each other over the rumble of engines. Ships loomed at the pier's bulk hulks against the brightening sky. At the end of one dock, a rusted freighter sat lower in the water than its neighbors. The name on its hull was faded, the flag at its stern frayed. A man with a weathered face and a knit cap watched her approach. His coat was heavy, his hands bare despite the cold. "You are a long way from the mountains, doctor," he said. "Oh, stirs," he said. His accent was Mediterranean, roughened by wind and cigarettes. "You do not know that I am a doctor," she said. He shrugged. "You walk like someone who knows where everything sharp is, Babette," he said. "And you are carrying a bag that rattles like pills." She stopped in front of him. "Do you have a medic on board?" she asked. "Not one who has done anything more than stitch a hand to you so week." He said, "We make do." "I can do more than that," she said. He smiled without showing his teeth. "We are going to Dakar and then east," he said. "Not many amenities, not many questions either." "That works," she said. "You want a berth?" he said. It was not a question. "I want to be where no one is looking for me," she said. "In return, your crew gets someone who can keep them alive if something goes wrong." He weighed it. The cranes clanked overhead. Somewhere a gull screamed. "People come out here for all kinds of reasons," he said. "Most of them are bad. Yours—" "I am trying to stop mine from getting worse," she said. He nodded once. "Cabin is small," he said. "Food is bad. Captain's word is law." "I have worked under worse," she said. He held out his hand. "Then welcome aboard," he said. Yar said. His palm was calloused, the grip firm. No one checked her ID, no one asked her to fill out a form. She walked up the gangway with her bag over her shoulder, the slap of her boots on the metal echoing more than it should. Her phone buzzed once in her pocket as the ship's engines rumbled to life. She pulled it out, a text from Reyes. "All 10 are stabilizing, vitals improving. No new orders written. Whatever you did, it is not killing them." She read it twice. Hale had been pushing a ghost. He had gambled on fear and on the weight she carried for every life she touched. The threat had been his favorite kind of weapon, one that did not leave fingerprints. She stood at the rail as the dock workers cast off the lines. The ship eased away from the pier, the gap of water widening. The port shrank by inches. She held the phone over the dark water for a second, the glow of the screen painting her fingers blue. Then she let it fall. It hit the surface screen first, a brief flare of light, then sank out of sight. The coastline slid slowly past. The air tasted like salt instead of snow. For the first time in a long time, there were no monitors beeping at her back, no pagers on her hip, no badges with someone else's name. Her hands rested on the cold metal of the rail. They were steady. The desert air tasted of dust and sun. 12 months after the snow and sirens of Mercy Peak, Dr. Elena Ward stood in a canvas tent at the edge of a refugee camp in northern Jordan. The walls snapped softly in the wind. Light filtered through the sand-colored fabric, turning everything inside a muted gold. Her hands moved in the glow. The boy on the table was 12, maybe 13. No one was sure. An infection had eaten deep into his leg after a piece of shrapnel tore through it weeks ago. His mother sat just outside the tent flap, fingers knotting and unknotting the edge of her scarf. "Almost there," Elena said in Arabic, the words practiced and rough but clear. Sweat slipped down her spine under the thin scrubs. The air smelled of antiseptic metal and the dry tang of old blood soaked into canvas. A generator outside rattled, fighting to keep the single overhead bulb steady. Her right hand held the needle. Her left guided the torn edges of skin together. The old scar across her knuckles caught the light, faded now, but still there. The local nurse assisting her, Nabila, watched the stitches carefully. "Where did you learn to do that so fast?" Nabila asked in English. She liked to switch languages mid-shift, as if testing which words held better. "In a place with less light and more noise," Elena said. Nabila smiled briefly, then focused on the instruments again. When the last suture was tied, Elena sat back. The boy's leg was wrapped, the worst of the infection cut away. It would still be a long climb back, but his chances looked better than they had that morning. "You did well," she told him, touching his shoulder. "Stay off that leg unless you want to see me again for the wrong reasons." He managed a faint grin. Outside the camp stretched out in uneven rows. Tents, shipping container shelters, improvised lean-tos patched with plastic tarps. Children ran between them, kicking a flattened bottle as if it were a ball. Smoke curled from small cooking fires. The sky was a bright, relentless blue. Elena stepped out into the light. It stung her eyes after the dim tent. The clinic was a cluster of connected tents and one prefab building that used to be an office somewhere else. A faded banner with a relief organization's logo flapped above the entrance. To one side, crates of donated supplies sat under a tarp, labels in 6 different languages, some already peeling. She washed her hands at a plastic basin, water sloshing against her wrists. The tremor that used to ripple through her fingers after long surgeries was still there but softer. It subsided quicker now. "Another save," someone said behind her. She turned. A tall man in a stained field vest leaned in the doorway. His beard was more gray than dark. The badge around his neck identified him as camp coordinator for the NGO that ran the clinic. "We did that together," Elena said. He shrugged. "I move numbers around on spreadsheets," he said. "You move arteries and bones. I know which one impresses me more." A child burst past them, laughing, chased by 2 others. Their footsteps kicked up tiny puffs of dust. Later that night, in a small corner of the camp that passed for an office, a junior aid worker scrolled through field photos on a laptop. Images from Jordan, South Sudan, Yemen, wherever the organization had set up temporary walls and beds. In one frame captured without ceremony, a woman in sun-faded scrubs stood under a tent. Light, her hands deep in a chest opened for an emergency. Sweat darkened her hairline. Her eyes were fixed on something just out of view, expression all focus. The aid worker attached the photo to a progress email and sent it to headquarters. The file bounced through servers, past firewalls, landed in inboxes that rarely saw anything but reports. In Washington, miles and worlds away from the dust and canvas, Special Agent Riley Kincaid sat at her desk long after most of the floor had gone dark. Her computer chimed. A newsletter from an NGO she had once donated to cued itself on her screen. She clicked more out of habit than interest. The headline was bland about medical relief in conflict zones. The first photo below it was not. Riley leaned closer. The resolution was not perfect, the light harsh, but the face under the tent lamp was one she recognized. A different name now on a badge she could not read. Different country, different walls, same scar on the hand holding a clamp. She sat back in her chair. The glow from the monitor painted her features pale. "Good," she said quietly. She did not forward the email. She did not print the picture. She closed the newsletter and let it slide into the unread pile. Out in the desert, night settled over the camp. Generators hummed. Faint laughter and low voices drifted through the fabric walls. Stars appeared in gaps between clouds, sharp and indifferent. In her tent, Elena sat on the edge of a narrow cot, unwrapping her hands. The skin was marked by the day's work, faint imprints from glove cuffs still visible at her wrists. She lay back, staring up at the curved ceiling of canvas. Shadows moved there, cast by someone walking past outside with a lantern. Her body ached in familiar ways. Her mind was quieter than it had ever been under hospital fluorescence. The tally in her head was smaller here and larger at the same time. Fewer charts, fewer machines, more faces. Her hands resting on the thin blanket were still. Outside, a baby cried, then settled. Somewhere a man coughed, a harsh rattle that promised another busy morning. The camp kept breathing. Elena closed her eyes. Thank you so much for listening to today's story. If this story resonated with you or made you reflect, I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to share them in the comments below. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss the next story. I'll see you next time as we continue exploring more journeys and lessons together.